In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Schema Pro's setup wizard to set some base schema on your website. Now, what do I mean by base schema? Let me show you an example. This is the search results for a branded query in Google. On the left hand side, you'll see all the basic URLs that you'd expect to see in the search results. But on the right hand side, you can see that Google has actually pulled up a lot of information about the brand itself. For example, you can see its social media handles, the founder of the company, when it was founded, and a bunch of other information. This is called the Google Knowledge Graph. And the goal of the base schema that we are setting up on your website with the help of Schema Pro's setup wizard is that Google understands your website and eventually your website also appears in the knowledge graph. Apart from that, we'll also add the appropriate schema to your website so that your website shows up with site links search box, breadcrumbs, and even the contact information of your website is available directly in the search results. Before we get started, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Yuvraj Wadhwani, and I work with Brainstorm Force to create helpful and educational content about Schema Pro and their other products. Now let's get back to the setup wizard. The first screen is the welcome screen, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and there's nothing to do here. The first step is just to go to the main tab, which is the general tab. So let's click the start button and head to the general tab. The next tab is the general tab, and here you'll configure settings that will help Google understand what kind of website you operate. For example, you might have a personal website for your personal brand under your own name, or you might be running a website for a local business, or you might have an online shop. So let's explore the settings and it will become clearer when we talk about the specific settings. The first setting says this website represents, which is the exact same thing that I was just talking about. If you click the drop-down menu, you'll see a bunch of different options to choose from. Although there are a few options to choose from, they're actually categorized into just two types: personal or organizational. Let me explain what I mean. If I choose the option that represents a personal website, which is personal website or a personal blog, I'll have these options to choose from. But if I choose an option that represents an organizational type of website, which is the business website or community news website or web shop, I'll also have to choose the organization type that my website represents. An easy way to distinguish whether you should be choosing a personal type website or an organizational type website is to focus on the content of your website. If the primary focus of your website is you, your story, your achievements, your portfolio, then you should be choosing a personal type website. So, if you're a coach, a chef, a freelancer, a video producer, an audio engineer, but the website is about you, then you should be choosing a personal type website. On the other hand, if the primary focus of your website is selling products, then you should be choosing an organizational type website. So if you're a coach who's selling online course on the website, or if you're a chef selling online recipe books or courses on your website, or you're a video production assistant and you're selling an online course on your website, then you choose the organizational type schema. Let's take a more real-life practical example. Gordon Ramsay is a world-famous chef. Everybody knows him. He also has his own website where you can learn more about him, his journey, his restaurants, and also enjoy some of his recipes. But he does not sell anything on his website. That's why I choose the personal type website schema for this website. But he also has another website, and the primary focus of that website is selling his cookbooks and few online courses and some other material. And for that website, I choose the organization type schema. I hope that this example makes it very clear on what type of schema you should choose for your website. Now let's get back to the setup process. Now I am going to explain how to actually configure these settings regardless if you have a personal website or a business website. So let's start with that. I'll choose the example of a personal website first. Let's go to the settings and I'll choose a personal website. As you can see, I have two options to configure. The first one is the website logo. Now, if you've already configured a logo inside your WordPress customizer, then Schema Pro will actually pull it up and display it right here, as you can see on the screen. But if you want to change it, it's easy to do so. Just click on the existing logo and the WordPress media library will open up. Here, you can actually upload a new logo or select an alternate one if you've already uploaded it. I'm just going to choose an alternate one just for example. and the logo is now changed. The second option you need to configure is the website owner name. Now, since this is a personal website, you need to actually enter your name in the field, not your website's name. So if I created a website for myself called something like abcxyz.com, I would still enter my name, Yuvraj Wadhwani, in the website owner name field. Now let me show you how to configure these settings for an organizational type website. For this example, I'll just choose the web shop option. And as I've shown you earlier, the first two options remain the same, and the third option, the organization type option or setting, will now have to be configured as well. So let me change the logo once again, just to show you again how it's done. I'll click the logo, choose a different one from the WordPress media library and select that. The second option is the web shop name. And this time you'll be actually entering the name of your website here, not your personal name. The third option is organization type. And if you click the drop down menu right here, you'll see all the different types of organizations that Schema Pro actually supports. Now, we've tried to add support for a lot of different organization types, but if your specific organization type is not available in the list, then you should select the general or other option. And in future videos, I'll show you how to use the local business schema and add additional information about your business inside the schema so that Google can pick it up. Furthermore, if you'd like to learn more about the organization types that were listed in the drop-down, you can click this link right here, which will take you to a blog post on our website, which has all the information in detail about all these organization types. Once you configure all the settings, then click the next button to go to the next tab. The next tab is the social profiles tab. And from the looks of it, you probably can guess what needs to be done here. But I'll also explain why it needs to be done, or what will be the impact of doing this. If you remember the first example that I shared with you about the Google Knowledge Graph, I did mention that Google also picked up the social media handles of the website in the search results as well. And by doing so, or by configuring the social media handles here, Schema Pro will actually add the appropriate markup on your website so that Google can understand or figure out which is the official social media handles for your website. So all you gotta do here is actually add the complete URLs of the social media handles in the respective fields. Now, the more links you can add, the better, but I'd recommend that you add the links of only those social media that you're actually active on. So let me show you how it's done. I'll just add a couple of links to the popular social media that actually we are active on, Facebook and YouTube, and you can do the same. So this is how it's going to look once you add the actual links. Do notice that I added the complete URL, not just the social media handle. If you add just the handle, not the URL, it's not going to work. Once you've configured the settings, just click the next button to reach the next tab, which is the Other Schemas tab. The next tab is the Other Schemas tab. And what it helps you do is actually configure some additional information about your website in the schema so that Google understands your website even better. Now, the difference is that the results of these settings won't show up in the knowledge graph, but they are still very important to configure. And as I explore the settings with you, you'll understand why. So let's start with the first setting, which is the Select About Page setting. Now, it's no secret that most of the websites around the world have an About page. For example, we have one, WordPress has one, and I'm sure your website has one as well. And you'd be surprised to know that for many websites and even individual personal blogs, the About page is one of the most visited pages on their website. Strange, but that's what it is. So what we do here is actually tell Google what the official About page of your website is through this setting. So how to configure it? Just have to click in this field and type in a couple of characters which represents the name of the About page. For example, my About page is named just About Us, so I'll just type in a few characters and select the page that comes up on the screen. That's it. The next setting is the Select Contact page. And just as the About page is important, the Contact page is also very important, especially if you have a business website. So here we'll configure the page or tell Google which page is the official contact page of your website. And the setting up process is quite similar to the About page. You'll just click in the field here and type in a few characters and select the page, or search for the page actually, and just select the one that is most appropriate or the right page for your website. The next option is Select Menu for Site Link Schema. And to understand this properly, you need to understand what site links are. So let's go back to the first example that I showed you about a brand query in Google. So now if you noticed that Google actually returned the home page of the website, but below it, Google also returned a bunch of other pages. and these are called site links, and they serve two important purposes. The first purpose is that it helps users navigate to the most important pages on a website quicker. But the second, and arguably the more important benefit, is that it represents kind of an authority in the search results. Now, if you've been using Google for a while, which I assume you are, you might have noticed that not all websites get site links, only a few of them do. And when you search for a brand in Google and a brand shows up with all the site links, it just shows that, oh, this brand has some authority in Google. And that is what you can achieve if you configure this properly. So what you do here is you actually select a menu from your website which has the most important pages. Now, why a menu? Because many times a menu already has most important pages on your website. So it just makes it easy instead of configuring the individual pages. Now, we understand that it's okay. Sometimes you might not have a menu that has the most important pages, or you might not have a menu at all. Some single page websites don't have a menu. So what in that case you can do is you can actually go and create a menu specifically for this purpose and actually add it here. I'll just show you. I'll just go here and you see I have already created a specific menu just for this purpose, and I'll just select it and that's it. I'm done. An important thing to know about the site link schema is that just because you have configured it does not mean your website will actually start showing up site links. But what it does mean is that when your website qualifies for site links, then Google will have the information that it needs to start showing them from day one. Coming to the next option, which is the Enable Site Links search box. Going back to the example that I just showed you, you might have noticed again that between the site links URL and the homepage URL, Google also showed a search box. And this is made possible by enabling this option and this schema. Now again, there's not enough data to show that actually people search or use this search box to search for specific pages on the website. But one thing's for sure, it does present your website with more authority in the search results. Again, just because you add this schema does not mean your site will show up with the site link search box. But again, it does mean that when your website qualifies, it will be visible on day one. Coming to the last option is the Enable Breadcrumbs option. Now, you might already be familiar with what breadcrumbs are and might have already configured them on your website. But this setting is not actually about that. This setting is about using or displaying breadcrumbs in the search results. Let me show you an image on the screen which will show you exactly what I'm talking about. So if you enable this option, then Schema Pro will actually add the appropriate schema to your website, which will help Google understand the hierarchy of your pages. So which page goes where, which page belongs to which category. And once Google has passed that data, it can actually start showing up or show breadcrumbs for your search results. Now, breadcrumbs in the site results might not improve your rankings per se, but they do provide an additional benefit of getting higher click-through rates, because the user can actually see that the page they're about to click on is exactly present in which kind of taxonomy, which just gives a more of a affirmative signal that they're actually about to click the right link. So it can actually help with a better click-through rate, which will actually improve your rankings. If you need a couple of more examples about these site links and breadcrumbs, you can actually use the tooltips right here. If you click on them, you will see some additional examples about site links, the site link search box, and even the breadcrumbs in the search results. Now, once you've configured all the settings, then click the next button to reach the next tab. So that's it. You just successfully configured base schema on your website using Schema Pro's setup wizard. But the video is not actually done, because there are still a few things that I need to talk about, and they are very important to understand. So let me start with the first one, which is checking your schema. Now, obviously, you know, there are many tools that can check your web pages and tell you if the schema is actually added to your website properly. And Google also has their own tool, which is the rich schema or rich results checking tool. So if you use any of the tools, or even the Google's rich schema tool or rich results tool to check the schema of your website, then you need to check it only on the home page, because all the base schema that we just added will be added only to your home page, not your posts or pages. Because posts and pages will have their own schema, which is more in line with the content that you have in the post and page. And since this is just a schema about your website, so it's added only to your home page. Just to give you guys an idea, this is how the actual rich result test should look like when you test schema for your home page. You shouldn't see any errors or warnings, and you should definitely see the message that page is eligible for rich results. If you see this, then the schema is properly added to your page. The next thing I want to talk about is actually changing these settings. Now, just because you've configured these settings in a certain way today doesn't mean that these settings will not change. All websites evolve, your website will evolve and change, and based on that, this information or the settings that you configured will also change. So you can actually change them anytime you want. In fact, you can actually go back to any of the tabs by clicking on these links right here and change the settings just as you completed the setup process. It's that easy. But obviously, if you want to make small changes, you won't use the setup wizard. You'll actually use the WordPress settings of Schema Pro and do that. Let me show you how it's done. We'll exit the setup wizard for now and reach this page. Now you can also find this page, or you can also navigate to this page using the WordPress settings. You'll find it under Settings, Schema Pro, Website Information, if you don't actually change the settings, which I'll talk about later. So what are these settings about? These are the exact same settings that you just configured using the setup wizard. Notice the tabs, the Journal tab, the Social Profiles tab, and other Schema. They are the same tabs that you just configured in the setup wizard. Let me even show you that. The Journal tab, Social Profiles tab, and other schemas. All the settings that we just configured are also carried here. But the Contact Information tab is a new one. This wasn't present in the setup wizard. So let me show you why this is important to understand, and depending on your website, it might also be important to configure it. So let's check out the page and see what the settings are. As you can see, this looks very familiar to the other settings that we configured, but why is this important? And especially, why is this a different setting? Let me explain. The contact information is kept separate from the setup wizard because it's neither mandatory nor a recommended field in the schema. Let me give you some context to explain what that means. If you don't add any of the fields that are required by Google to parse schema on your website, you will get an error in the Google Rich Schema testing tool. And if you don't add any of the fields or fill in any of the fields that are recommended by Google, then you get a warning. But if you don't fill in the contact information field, then you get neither warning or an error. And that is why the contact information is actually an optional field. Now, since the contact information is neither a mandatory nor a required field, then what's the need of having it? Or why is it here in the first place? The answer for that is because the contact information that you configure here has the potential to show up in the knowledge graph. Going back to the first example of the branded query in Google, you might remember that Google also pulled the contact information for the brand in this knowledge graph. And if you want your brand's contact information to show up in the knowledge graph as well, then it's recommended that you fill in the fields in the contact information page. So let me show you the individual settings and explain why they're useful. The first setting, or the first drop down, has a list of different departments that you can add contact information for. As you can see on the screen, you have customer support, technical support, billing support, bill payment, and a bunch of other options. So let's do a practical example and choose sales. The next option is the contact page URL. Now, for different departments, you might have different pages dedicated to them. So it's a wise decision to actually add the specific page where the contact information is actually listed. So the process is the same. You click on this field and you actually search for the appropriate page. For example, I set it up as sales team information, my page, but yours might be different. So I'll select this. The third option is the contact number. And I would say this is one of the most important settings out of the three, because Google can actually pick it up and show the contact number directly in the search results. And for businesses with high ticket values or where customer acquisition is very important, this can alone mean a big difference in the number of customers that you can support, or the customers can actually, who can find the right information to get support from. Very invaluable information. To share an example, here's a contact number of Amazon if you search the appropriate keywords in Google. And this is how the contact number will show up in Google if you set it up correctly. So the contact number has to be set up in a certain way. You have to start with a plus sign, and you have to also add the country code and format it. For example, here's an example on the screen. I'll just copy and paste it just so that you can see how it actually needs to be done. There's an extra character, I'll remove it. And once you're done, make sure to click Save Changes. Otherwise, the changes will not be saved, and you can lose the information if you navigate away or refresh the page. The second option is an option that I actually should have discussed, which is the other option. Now, obviously, all these fields do not cover all the different types of departments that a business might have. And also, this does not cover the options for a personal website, right? These are all business related options. So what does, in both the scenarios we should do is we can do is we can select the other option, which actually opens up a field called the other contact type. As you can see, I've already filled in something here, and this is just to represent what would you do if you were using a personal website, or if you had a personal website. If you had a business website, you can actually delete this and add in the name of the department that you wanted to add the contact information for, or you can replace it with a string that maybe represents your brand or even your name if you have a personal website. And that is how you add the contact information for a department that does not cover the fields that should, or also for a personal website or your personal contact information in the schema. And these are important things to know. And once you've done, or once you've selected or made all the changes that you want to do, make sure to click the Save Changes button once again. Otherwise, your changes might be lost if you actually navigate away from the page. And once your changes are saved, that means you're actually done. Yeah, you use Schema Pro Setup Wizard to set up the base schema of your website. That means you set up a great foundation of schema for Google to actually understand your website and display rich results in the search results. Now, there are exciting steps to be followed, because you have to now start actually creating the schema for the different kinds of pages and posts on your website. And obviously, we'll have videos on that as well. So make sure to subscribe to this channel and also turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you don't miss any of those videos. And if you like this video, then make sure to hit a thumbs up. And also, if you have any questions, then don't forget to leave them in the comments, because we reply to each and every one of them. Again, this is Yuvraj, and you're watching Brainstorm Force YouTube channel. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.